It is time. Yes, it has arrived. Finally. Finally again. The Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing very, very good. Welcome, everybody. Listen, we've got Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft and Miles Bauer co-hosting with me. Folks, I got to tell you something. I'm looking at a picture. It's on my Facebook page, by the way. I'm looking at a picture of Premier Khrushchev. Am I saying that name right, Miles? Khrushchev.
Khrushchev, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a really common name, Khrushchev. But he's sitting with a person that we all knew, Ted Kennedy. And the caption is, Ted Kennedy secretly asks the Soviets to intervene in the 1984 elections. And I'm going, which half is it? Is it the CIA that doesn't agree with everybody else that's looking into this?
Yeah.
And the CIA is the folks that took some punches on the end of the nose during the election cycle. So it would be said by a wise person that there are a lot of players and each one has their own agenda. And the CIA, they've got their own agenda right now, but the FBI doesn't agree with them. What was the other organization that doesn't agree with them, Miles?
Wait a minute. One point of correction.
Yep.
Khrushchev wasn't heading up Russia in 1984.
He wasn't, but he's sitting here at this table with them. They had a long-standing relationship. And listen,
Yeah.
it's kind of ironic, folks, because back in the day that we're talking about, when the Kennedy family had an embracing relationship with Khrushchev and the leaders before and thereafter, they were very leftist. I'm just saying. Now, if you look at the economy of Russia, because it's no longer the Soviet Union, and the reason, by the way, it's no longer the Soviet Union is because socialism doesn't work. This is not a riddle. It's just math. It doesn't work. And so back in the day, when they were socialists and uber leftists, the Kennedys and the Democrats loved them. Does anybody remember history? I'm just asking. Do we suddenly just pretend like that doesn't exist and go on a witch hunt that's obviously got nothing at the end of the root? It's solely and completely and entirely designed to taint an administration. And speaking of history, I'm recalling when President Obama won, and was it Rush Limbaugh? I think somebody said, because I remember him talking about it certainly, but I remember a lot of talk about someone famous making the comment that they hope he wasn't successful. And what they meant was, we hope that he doesn't find the ability to ram through his socialist agenda. Not that he or America wasn't successful, but they went on a warpath over that. And now that the shoe is on the other foot, these folks are out in front purposely trying to destroy an administration before it begins. Listen, I got to tell you, there's a little bit of a difference between saying, I hope you don't get your socialist agenda through, versus trying to destroy an administration. This is America. This is the United States. We're supposed to be a constitutional republic, not some banana republic from some far-flung third world nation. Who are these people that we're allowing to infect our culture and our political environment?
This isn't even about history with a example of socialism not working. If you just look south of us in Venezuela, is exactly what they want to push forward.
10 years ago they were raving about Venezuela and are pointing to it as the example of the things that we could have. Mm-hmm. They still look at Cuba. There's the things that we could have. Thank you. No. No.
What, political discourse, murders for saying anything against the government, living in poverty.
I'm just flabbergasted at how outrageously... the part that is... But I got to tell you the truth. The part that gets me isn't them, because I kind of expected them to be that way. But I'm looking at President Obama now on November 25th defending the system.
What system?
Our system. There's nothing wrong with our electoral. There was no influence from outside.
Oh, and they just said like a few days yesterday or 2 days ago too.
He was defending the system then until they went, wait a minute, we think we found a weapon.
Well, the White House said yesterday or 2 days ago, John, whatever the press secretary's name said, we still don't believe there was any interference or any proof of this.
See, Podesta, how do you say his name, Miles?
Podesta?
Podesta. I'm still stuck on Snuffleupagus.
Is that on Sesame Street?
Where do you get these people? I'm just saying. I'm looking at U.S. officials defend integrity of vote despite hacking fears. Well, there was no hacking fears. Certainly in the state of Michigan, there was no hacking fears. Our system's not hooked up to the internet.
Oh, did you hear about that today?
No, tell me what.
Detroit. This is all backfired on them now.
Oh, yeah,
has discovered
they got
huge fraud.
Massive fraud in Detroit.
More votes than there are voters.
No, that never happened before except for the last election.
Careful what you ask for.
These folks are off the rails. But listen, where I was going, they're not the ones that stun and shock me. Who stuns and shocks me are the electorate, that faction or that portion of the electorate that nods up and down like Cheshire cats, like the puppy in the back window. I don't get what people are thinking, but I think I've solved my own riddle. You're not thinking if you're on board with this nonsense. It is.
Mike,
go ahead.
Don't you think that they've just been hopscotching from one excuse to another since election night to explain that it had nothing to do with progressivism? It had nothing to do with their policies. It couldn't be the person in the mirror. It's got to be something else. And as each one of those excuses have been knocked down, they've had to jump to another.
That's part of the Democrat creed, isn't it? Blame others, not ourselves.
Exactly. They don't want to look themselves in the mirror. They don't want to acknowledge that now they're just a bi-coastal regional party.
But their reply to that, Miles, is the popular vote. We're not a bi-coastal or regional party because we won the popular vote.
But as you and I both explained, or even talked about the morning after the election, if you remove California and New York out of the numbers, Trump blows her up by several million votes.
Right. Well, then now, but speaking of that, I wasn't going to get into this today, but have I heard that there's a new push for California to secede?
I've been hearing that on Facebook, but I'm never sure if it's true.
Well, yeah, it's a Facebook.
There's only one state that has that in their statehood as a legal thing to do, and that's Texas.
Yeah, don't buy that.
Doesn't matter.
And don't buy that because the federal government will never let that revenue source go.
Absolutely, but it's the only one that has.
It was about money. It was about money in the first Civil War.
Yeah.
What was it? Abe Lincoln said, "We can't let them go. We need the money."
Yeah.
And that's true, by the way. And so.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's always inevitably about the do-re-mi. Miles,
think about it, Mike. California is so far into debt now that if they seceded, they would immediately go bankrupt. They'd have to go somewhere for cash because they couldn't sustain themselves.
Well, we spend more, and I wrote an op-ed on this during the Iraq War. Mm-hmm. At the peak of the Iraq War, it was a 3-month analysis. We spent more keeping the peace in the southern half of California than we did fighting the war in Iraq at the peak of the Iraqi war. And here's the worst part. We have more civilians lost to violent crime in the southern half of California than we lost casualties, U.S. soldier casualties, in the peak of the war. And so I said at the time, maybe we should withdraw from California and quit arguing about Iraq. Because if we're just looking at death, mayhem, and treasury loss, California's a problem.
Well, it's the 5th largest
So if there's a
economy in the
petition, I want to sign. Goodbye, California.
I'd say goodbye. They're the 5th largest economy in the world.
It's the 6th.
Sixth now?
Every time they tell the story, they got a new number. It makes me say I don't believe their numbers. I'm just saying.
I always read the 5th, but maybe they dropped one.
I take the 5th?
But they would be in the top 10 largest economies in the world, and they're just a state. And they're bankrupt.
No.
They are the example of what we don't want the country to be.
Here's the fun part about them. They absolutely made the real estate market so where a postage stamp cost like $5 billion. So a good portion of them moved to Las Vegas and ruined Las Vegas with the same crazy regulations and drove the real estate prices up. And then when the economy fell because tourism stopped going to Vegas, guess what they did? They went home and left a whole boatload of empty houses and absolutely flipped the real estate market in Vegas like there was no other market ever been flipped before. Thanks, Californians. Boy. Guy says, stops in my shop. I'm here, and I just moved here from California. I said, welcome back to the United States. Yeah. So, how long do we have, Brian? He's waving all kinds of signs. He's telling me, oh, no, hardwall. Folks, we'll be right back.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
The Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by renegaderiver.com. And we're flying again, even though the weather's a little frightful.
It is. I have to tell you, I'm kind of missing global warming. I'm just saying. Speaking of all of their craziness, I wish they were maybe right about that a little bit, but not so much. It's a little bit cool out there. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we've got Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft and Miles Bauer. I wonder how many people are going, who is that? Who did he just say? Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft? I had to practice that. It's easier to say than Twitter, though. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Listen, here's another thing that kind of gets me, and maybe you two can help me out. It's not unusual for me to be at difference with conservatives, or not conservatives, rather, actually, Freudian slip, that's where I'm going. It's not unusual for me to be at difference with socialists and progressives and liberals all. I don't get their concept. It's not that they're bad. I don't get it. But they've got certain talking points. They do. And by the way, conservatives have certain talking points also. I see it. I understand. I don't typically agree with their talking points. Usually their talking points talk me out of being interested in whatever they're advocating. We just don't see things alike. But what's kind of gotten me amazed as I watch on Facebook and I watch on Twitter and I watch on all of the various social medias, Instagram, etc., and the show's everywhere, I'm just telling you, folks. So I watch all of these conversations that take place, and there are folks that consider themselves constitutional conservatives that are advocating I'm talking about the Never Trumpers, by the way. I remember, Miles, you and I talking about a month or so before the election, and you said, if these people are still Never Trumpers at this late, then they're never going to be Trumpers. Or they're always going to be Never Trumpers, however that sentence ought to be reeled out. My point is that you got all these constitutional conservatives. A lot of them are my friends and I like them. But they're just buying into this absolute... I'm going, really? Are you advocating that? Is that what you shared on your Facebook page with the idea of advancing why Trump is no good? Same mentality as I was talking about in the first segment. This guy's not even out of the starting block yet, and he's being absolutely shot at from every direction, including the folks that should be, if nothing else, even if they don't like him. Like, for instance, I didn't like McCain. I met him several times. I had pictures taken with him. I don't like him as a person. I certainly didn't advocate what I consider to be uber left politics. I'm sure he thinks it's centrist. For me, it's uber left. I'm a constitutionalist. But I'm honest enough to say that. On the other hand, when he was our nominee, I stood down. I did. I just, okay, he's the guy that the majority on our side picked. I plugged my nose. You've heard that term before, everybody. I plugged my nose and I went in, I hit McCain. I felt the same way about Romney. But I'm listening to the other side of our party, or that faction. It's not a side, it's a small sliver. But joining with who I consider to be my political adversaries. Niles, am I off in the drink again? Am I in the ditch?
No, I mean, the Never Trumpers are the Never Trumpers. I mean, I have seen Joy, my built-in Never Trumper. I mean, even
that would be your significant other, just to make sure everyone understands what he was talking about.
my darling bride.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even she has been impressed with his cabinet picks. So I was in shock when she actually started doling out compliments. But she remains a Never Trumper, and
how do folks
going to be folks?
Yeah, but how do folks say he's really building a great team? I'm against him.
Yeah,
I don't get that. Honest, I don't. I listen. Everyone that listens to this show, and especially you two and Brian Thomas, knows I was not on the Trump train. I just wasn't. It's okay, but I gotta have some. There's got to be some intellectual honesty about this. When you step back for a moment and look at what he did in the final month of the campaign, frankly, I was a cruiser. But when I look what he did in the final month of the campaign, He pushed me out of his camp. I watched what Trump did. I commented on those things I didn't agree with, what I think is the job of the show, and I compliment him on the areas that he did. Now that I'm watching him set up an administration, man, he's made picks that I wouldn't have thought of, and some of them are brilliant. And the fascinating part about it is he's got a whole host of liberals coming and going. He's got like we talked about last week, Rahm Emanuel and Igor and all of these people coming and going from Trump Tower.
Kanye West.
But I don't think he's a over leftist. I didn't get that impression.
No, I think Kanye. I don't know what Kanye is, but the
don't know.
Kardashians aren't.
I don't,
which is his wife.
I don't know where their ideologies are, but what I'm getting at with this point is the guy is reaching out to all of the folks that opposed him, which I think is the job of the President of the United States. He's not the president of the Republican Party. If that were his title, he wouldn't have it, be sure of that. I'm just being candid. It just wouldn't have happened. He's running, he won, he is going to be the President of the United States. So where I'm tying this back to is the comments I'm seeing from folks that I consider my colleagues, my personal friends, that are glomming on to the negativity of the extreme left. Not centrists, not leftists, not your average Democrat walking down the street. They're glomming on to the crazy left. They're sharing fake stories that are really, truly fake stories. When you immediately do a little bit of quick looking, they're not true. But these folks are buying in because they like the negative if they can attack him. I'm looking at to our point, I'm looking at the administration he's setting up. Miles, what'd you think of Tiller, his Secretary of State?
Yeah, I like that pick a lot.
It's so far removed from where we were talking a month ago. Newt Gingrich and, the mayor of the former mayor Giuliani, and but now Perry has a position. Is Carly Fiorina on board this?
She met with him the other day.
I heard she's being considered from not a cabinet post, but for an administrative level function.
I kind of hope not. Yeah, I'm telling you, she was a horrible CEO. Like, I don't want her anywhere near running anything.
Listen, I don't know what his plans are, but the guy is proving himself to be brilliant, and I got to use that word. And I'm honest in why I'm saying it. I was not on the Trump train. Forget the rhetoric that they show on TV. As Miles pointed out all through the primary, go and listen to the actual rallies and what he's actually saying rather than what they're snippeting out. Mm-hmm. I think that point was when I actually did that, and now I'm looking at the strategies he's clearly unveiling. It's brilliant.
So number one reason I ever wanted this guy.
Oh, my.
I knew you guys were going to do that, but whatever.
Miles.
He is a manager who knows how to put the right people in place.
We need one of those big stage canes that just pull him right out.
No, we need to go back and listen to the tapes. Where's the tapes,
He was the cruise trumper. He was the guy that wetted his finger and stick it in the wind to see which way the wind blowing, and that's who he is.
Ooh, Casey today. He's gonna. Oh no, right, not Casey. Cruz today. Nope, Marco.
I still can't get Kasich to stop blowing up my emails. By the way. Please take me off your list, John Kasich. I don't like you. You're not going to get any of my money. I don't have enough, and you ain't getting it. I'm just
no, you know
saying.
what, Mike? The one thing I like, I have, and you and I have often talked about this for years, is that it would be interesting if someone ran the government like a business rather than like a government.
Yeah.
And I think that we might see that play out here. That we might actually see what happens when the government is run more like a business than like government.
I've heard a lot of folks on the left, some of them some high-level folks on the left, say exactly contrary to what you just said. You can't run this like a business. It's a government. It's different than business. And I'm thinking, well, we've been running it like a government for a long time, and that ain't working out so hot.
Right.
So
this is why I loved Herman Cain 4 years ago. He turned around Godfather's Pizza. He turned around Burger King. I wanted Herman Cain 100%. His 999 plan. I liked everything about Herman Cain.
Said the big boy from Elias Brothers. Oh my goodness, it's a fascinating world we live in. That folks will find the argument that fits their narrative rather than seeking the truth.
That's in everything, though. That's with arguing with your wife, your kids, yourself. You always find the one that fits your narrative. There could be 100 things that say no. That one says yes. That's mine.
You argue with your wife?
No.
I can't believe that would be true. She's a nice person. That she's stuck with you is just beyond I feel so bad for her. Gina's a nice lady. Folks, Brian Thomas is busting out. Folks, we got to go to a break, so we'll be right back.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show.
RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it.
The Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. And we are just floating through here, man. Floating and flying.
We are floating. It's freezing and floating and flying. Listen, folks, if you're just tuning in, Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft and Miles Bauer, my co-hosts, are on deck with me, and I'm reading Facebook. I'm just saying. Kathy, our friend from Chicago, she said she didn't realize that funding abortions for decades and in instituting gay leadership in the Boy Scouts were considered conservative values, and she's talking about Tillerson's background. I don't know his background, but by the way, a longtime good friend of mine, Greg Stevens, adds that Trump doesn't care about conservatism. Let me listen. These folks have known me for a long time, so I think that they know where my heart is at politically. They know that I'm a classical liberal, not necessarily a conservative. I'm just telling you, folks. So if you just swerved off the road into the ditch with shock, Google it. I'm a classical liberal. I want freedom. I want a limited constitutional republic. I want Jeffersonianism to a large point. In fact, a fellow told me once, we're on opposite sides of the party. He's a classical conservative. I said, so you're here on behalf of the king. Words matter and definitions matter. But my point to my two friends would be a couple things. One, first off, when I look at the overwhelming majority of the folks that Trump is putting to the administration, they are long-term, well-documented conservative people. Having said that, the Secretary of State won't have a direct role in any of these policies. This person's charge is to be a diplomat. Mm-hmm. Ben Franklin was a great diplomat, but I don't think anyone, including me, and he's probably one of my favorite founders, could point at him and say, what a conservative. Because this just wouldn't be true. He was a liberal when liberal meant what liberal means, and that's freedom from government. That's what he was. I mean, if you put him in today's charge, I don't think he'd be a Democrat, and I'm not so certain he'd be a Republican either. Here's where I'm going with this. I'm not trying to get on a rant, folks, but we've had ideologues in that office for a long time. How about if we do what Miles said and just have someone to go in there and run the business of the United States of America? Why do we got to pull out the literacy test every time a name is named? Ludwig von Wiedenhoeft, grab out the scroll and let's check off the things that you are and that you are not. Folks, that's not working for us. It hasn't worked for us in a very long time. Yes, I'm a conservative, a Jeffersonian-leaning conservative. But when I make decisions in a political realm, they're usually not Mike Hewitt's decisions. They're the result of me getting along with 50 other people in the room. So when I walk out, I get some of what I want. I don't get everything I want. That's how America's supposed to work. And listen, I love you both, Kathy and Greg, Frank, all you folks. I genuinely, you're good friends. I love you all. But we don't agree on this because a literacy test and ideologues cannot successfully run the United States of America for the majority of Americans. I just passionately believe that. Like I've talked about Holly Hughes in the district where we're in right now. I'm way more conservative than her. We need her as our state representative in this district because this district wouldn't elect me. I'm just being honest with you. So it's that kind of mindset that I passionately believe that we have to embrace. Miles, am I in the ditch? Am I wrong or am I right?
No, I mean, there was also the saying of that if we're going to take a fine-tooth comb behind everybody, we're not going to have anybody running for anything because they're just going to walk out there and get shot from every direction.
Nobody can pass the perfection rule. I said on the air a few months ago, and I got some hate mail over it and I didn't mean this as a theological statement, but nobody could run that didn't take arrows from somebody, including Jesus, and he did take arrows. Folks, there's no somebody that everyone's going to go, holy jeepers. It just doesn't exist. And we're destroying ourselves, in my view, trying to find the perfect person that doesn't exist. I believe that. So I'm going to say, okay, the majority said this is the most conservative. That's my litmus test, by the way. I want the most conservative candidate the electorate will allow, while I do everything that I can possibly do to help coach and educate the electorate along. So it's a two-step thing. It's not just me saying willy-nilly whatever you all decide. It's me saying I'm invested. This show is invested. I'm invested in my personal life outside the show. I'm coming to the completion of my second novel. No one's ever going to call me a novelist. I'm just telling you. I'm working hard to advance a message within the electorate, within the voter world. But in the meantime, I'm going to take the most conservative that the electorate will allow. And so in the last election, the most conservative was Donald Trump. That's who they allowed to have. I don't think he's an ideologue. I actually agree with Kathy. I actually agree with Greg. I don't think he's a conservative, but I don't think he's a flaming liberal. I know he's not a socialist. You're going to get stuff done.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the political part of it. He wants to get the right things done to get this country back.
I'm thinking you're right. I really am.
Yeah. And the other thing I would add is that if you ask three conservatives to define conservatively,
you got three different definitions.
You get four answers. Yep.
Amen.
Four answers out of three. I like that.
He's exactly right. May even be estimating low. And by the way, even in my ramp up to his comment, I'm over here waffling between classical liberalism and conservatism. If there's no two people that, and in fact, you see it on Facebook. It's a lot of fun. I've been on there a long time. I don't know, 10 years, long time. I'd have to go back and look, a long time, but long enough to have been there through a number of elections. And so you know how you folks, you'll get the memories that'll come back. You shared this memory with, and they'll give you 8 or 9 examples of memories. And I see campaigns from days gone by, and the folks that are on different paths now than they were 4 years ago, and than they were 8 years ago. Some of it's funny. I'm just saying, some of it's funny, because people seem to have this knack of molding, like you, Ludwig, of molding your politics to the time rather than maintaining, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just an observation.
Well, there's some things that I fundamentally stand for will never change.
We haven't found them yet.
But a small government, lower taxes, business environment, strong business environment.
Did you really vote for Hillary? When you were in there all alone, did you vote for Hillary?
I did, but then my pen broke. So the machine did vote for my son. Wait, we did pen and paper.
You must have voted in Detroit where votes don't matter.
Actually, yeah, I called my buddy over the check and I said, hey, can you have your cousin in Russia vote for me today?
Nice.
He had to show up.
I wouldn't have went there.
That's how stupid this whole thing is.
That was kind of good for you, Ludwig. I'm impressed. That took both of us by surprise. What did you just say?
I was going for the mute button myself.
Yeah. How long is our delay tag on this show?
7 seconds.
I don't think that'd be enough.
8 seconds.
We'll pass that.
Oh, what a piece of work he is.
This is why Trump will succeed. This is why many Democrats switched over.
Because of the Russians.
Yes, the Russians.
It's all Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, according to Joey Behart, our flag's now going to have a pickaxe or a hammer and a pick on it, just like the Russian flag. And somebody needs to stand up to Trump and ask him to step down.
Yeah.
I just love The View.
The
View.
You laugh. I can't do it.
I don't watch that.
I can't watch that.
My TV would burn up if I turn that on.
I'm good for about 10 seconds of that. That's like me listening to the publicly funded broadcast systems. I can't make it because I talk to you like you're a moron.
Yeah.
Everybody in third grade now, class, please listen. It reminds me of the voice from the Peanut Show.
The Peanut Show?
Remember the teacher? Wah, wah, wah,
Oh,
wah,
yeah.
wah, wah.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I'm sorry. Just can't do it.
How'd she talk again?
Just like you. Same thing. You guys are all teachers. I get it. Wah, wah, wah. Remember?
Yeah, and students just clapping, shake their head up and down.
Oh, you should have seen that, folks. If you were on Facebook, you could have watched. I kind of feel bad for folks. No, they can only see the brim of your hat. There, see? I'm sorry, everybody that's watching.
That's why I hide.
Yeah, we'll keep him off. I'm telling you, it's a rough run. We're going to do kind of an abbreviated Enigma report. Let's just do it, because I got some other stuff I want to dig into. So, folks, we're going to go to a break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mike Hewitt Show.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by renegaderiver.com. And we have arrived at the Enigma Report.
I think the Enigma Report today, to use Miles' word, let's just kind of freestyle for a minute. But before I dive into whatever we're going to freestyle about, I got to tell you guys a silly story. So I'm writing this book. It's the sequel to the first book. The second book that I'm working on is the third founding of America. Yes, it's a little political. I'm just warning you. And it's just a little bit political, but it's set in the year 2029, not science fiction at all. However, part of the first book and now part of the second book is this thing called Raptors, or RAP, for Rapid Assault Pod. And so that's what it was called, Rapid Assault Pod. And now, Ludwig, I know you didn't read the book.
I did. I pulled up and showed you all my highlighted notes of 5 books. I even had to pay for this book, people. He asked me to read his book and didn't give me a copy. I had to pay for it. Talk about a capitalist.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that.
You get your 30-cent refund from Amazon.
I'm just telling you, I appreciate your contributions. You got a digital one, or I'd have signed it for free almost.
Oh, I'm still going to have you sign my iPad in Sharpie.
So working on the covers, all jokes aside, I finally got to the point in this novel where I think I'm going to take a break from the writing itself and start, because I like to write to, he's got one paragraph. Nobody believes that. Greg Stevens, do you believe that?
Highlighted notes.
Speaking of that, that's why Greg Stevens called you Comrade von Wiedenhoeft.
This is the list of all the notes I took.
Nobody believes it. It doesn't matter. Those are his school notes from first grade.
See, Brian? All these notes.
So I'm writing on the thing, and I take a break from the writing part, and I'm going to start working on the cover. And listen, I'm really torn on it, because the cover's a big deal. If you're really bored sometime, Google America's Final Beginning. I think the cover and the back cover are really cool. I do. This is from 2012. Not trying to sell the book. I really like the cover. So now that I'm doing the sequel, and everyone knows the second one is never as good as the first one, isn't that what they say about movies? So I'm working on trying to get this cover to look good. And I've narrowed it down to a couple concepts. One of them, did you hold that up?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, there's the cover. Greg Stevens going, you know how many times I've seen that? Stop it.
This is radio, Mike. You need to describe your cover to the listening audience.
Listen, hold that thing up. Let me describe it. You describe it, Ludwig.
So we got a group of soldiers with one in the front, and there's a faint American flag in the background with, it looks like there's a fire behind the soldiers that's lighting up the back with this faint American flag.
Oh my goodness.
It's pretty intense.
Do you have a picture of the back cover?
Nah, I don't think so.
Oh, you got to have a picture of the back cover. No, he didn't, folks. I'm telling you, he interviewed me on this show about my book. Oh my goodness. That was quite an interview, I'm just saying.
Yeah, according to my iBook, it's just a gray back cover.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. At any rate, I worked really hard on the back cover and the front cover of the first novel. So I'm investing just as much into the second as I did the first, at least as it relates to the cover, just because I think that's part of the story. I think it helps to tell the story, to set up folks in the right direction. So back to the Raptors. There's that. See that?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that picture.
Oh, geez, well, tell them.
A picture of the globe, like an old-style looking globe, with just with America and Canada, and this is the tri-state America's
that would be
province.
North America.
Yeah,
All three countries of North America.
You may be shocked how many people wouldn't know what makes up North America.
That's why I'm helping you. You're just a professor.
Mexico included, Central America, some of the Bahamas on here, but it's that part of the globe, and it just says the tri-state America's province, a charter of the Global Socialist Authority.
So in the second book,
or Obama's America.
In the second book, there's going to be a battle scene on the back cover. And I wanted to get a picture of the raptor. Well, the raptor's in my imagination. It looks like a really, really highly reflective teardrop. It's a single pod. They've got them now, by the way, but they're not enclosed. It's for a one person's a flying pod, and you get in it, you close the door, and the thing flies. It's a rapid assault pod, and in fact, NASA and other government groups, along with some private groups who are probably way further ahead, have been working on this concept since the 1950s. So it's not something that's not like science fiction, although I've updated it to fit into the year zone that I'm writing about. So I go on this big search for this book, or for this image, and I'm putting steel and spin and aluminum and stainless steel. I come across this huge egg. Well, egg, so it belongs to this company, and I'm going to end up at some point, we'll get them put on our website. But I write back and forth with the president of this company. What a great organization. And he sends me a picture of what I think to be, this is the raptor. I mean, I'm telling him, in fact, I took an excerpt from the book because he didn't understand when I was trying to play any better than I'm doing right now, trying to get him to understand. But it was very, very cool that he actually had one. Hold that up in the for Facebook folks. Greg Stevens will know it, and probably a few others. That's gone now, Ding Dong. So that's the end of you. Anyhow, enough of this freestyling. Miles, what's in the news?
Well, since last we met, let's not forget John Glenn passed.
Yep, amen.
And that was huge from our era because I remember as a kid sitting in front of the television set watching all those rockets.
He was one of a small handful of people that single-handedly, got our NASA program to the level that it was before Obama destroyed it.
Yeah,
that's ugly.
Yeah, and when you think about those guys, they didn't have safe rooms and need Xanax when an election went sideways. These guys didn't know if they were ever coming home.
Well, so Ludwig is showing me different pictures of something. What is that?
That's a pod from the movie Planet of the Apes that Tim Burton did like 10 years ago.
Yep.
And it left the ship and...
it's a flying pod like I talked.
Yeah.
Mine's cooler than theirs, I'm just saying.
Reminds you, it's when I read your book, this is what I thought of when I was thinking of the Raptor, was this type of picture. So. No, I was sad. I heard about Glenn after I left class, Miles, and I wish I had known before I was in class because I would have explained to my students who he was and the significance, because I'm sure they have no idea.
Have you ever noticed that Yahoo's a little liberal?
Absolutely. Marissa Mayer, their CEO, is horrible.
I just over the top. But I'm reading an article while we're talking. Tech leaders couldn't beat Trump, so they're going to meet him instead. And I don't know where Drudge comes up with the titles. Tech gods to tower.
He has a huge meeting today. Bill Gates, IBM, Elon Musk isn't going. I'm assuming Mark Cuban wasn't invited. But Cook from Apple's going to be there.
Oh yeah,
it's a pretty big deal.
Pretty intense.
Yeah, I think what's great is that
Kumbaya.
No.
No kumbaya?
I think Mark Cuban went on and on about how Trump didn't understand technology, and it doesn't matter what he doesn't understand. He understands people. That's what matters. So what does he do? I don't get it. Let's bring in the best minds on this.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, he just
That
proves
really
it
is.
over and over and over again. The
I thought
best
he was doing I
managers
Am
and
Not a
leaders
Crook.
put the right people in the right place.
Yeah, I think that. But it's like I said, I believe that he's reaching out to all of the folks that opposed him.
Yeah. Tim Cook put millions in super PACs for Hillary.
Yeah.
And all of those tech leaders did.
Yeah, have you ever noticed these mega rich people never want to start with their socialism with their own wealth?
No, it's all yours.
We need wealth distribution, but not ours, yours.
Yeah. Oh,
I just Barbara Streisand and all of these folks, they're 80, 90, 110 million dollars net worths. They never share their money. They just want you to share yours. Mm-hmm. I find that so insulting. I do.
Yeah, they want you to share what little you have, but they keep all that they have.
Right. I don't. But the part that gets me, like Globe and all of those, the awards and all that, and the Uber let people sit around and clap like penguins. I never understand it. Listen, folks, follow us on Twitter at Talk Mike Hewitt and on / The Mike Hewitt Show, and of course .com, the MikeHewittShow.com. Folks, thank you very, very much for joining us. Ludwig, Miles, and Brian, thank you. Folks, we'll see you next week.
RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it.